Welcome to your second week of your Intro to College Success class. For this week, we're going to really take a look at motivation and goal settings. College is full of challenges. You're learning how to balance your academics with your family, with a job. Now you're having to study for an exam when you used to be able to watch episodes of Bridgerton. So you're trying to find that balance. And then add a global pandemic on top of all of that, and it just makes it a little more difficult. So we're going to look at strategies and habits, things like your mindset, resilience, grit, things that can really help you push through your difficult times you're in college. And we're going to look at those in the settings of motivation and goal setting. So you can look online and you can find plenty of motivation. You can almost drown in it, between social media sites. You can Google the word motivation, and suddenly you're going to be flooded with these images. You can go to Pinterest and you can find boards that people have saved quotes and websites and life coaches, that's offering advice. And you can find all of these things. I mean, you can find TikToks and Facebook pages and, Snapchats that are going to be full of this. And it's almost to the point where you can be flooded with this information. So you spend more time looking at all of this motivational quotes and websites and things like that you forget your own motivation. You forget your own goals. So we're going to look at types of motivations. We know that we can Google and we can see quotes and we can gather inspiration from other people. But where does that motivation come from? So we have two types of motivation. You have what's called extrinsic motivators, and that comes from other people. Okay, so that is um, the it comes from other people and the external world. So this type of motivation stems from the promise of an external reward or the fear of an undesirable outcome. Okay, so these types of motivation determines how committed you'll be to your coursework. How are you going to overcome your obstacles in achieving your goals? Because motivators affect our decisions and actions every day. So your extrinsic motivators are from the external world. So we'll look at examples here in just a minute on what those external motivators are, extrinsic motivators, and where they come from, and examples of what they are. But then we also have what's called intrinsic or internal motivators. And those come from your personal interests, desires, your own standards. This types of motivation, it derives from an internal desire to achieve. So when your intrinsic motivators are at play, the decisions you make are more personal because your thinking and your reasoning are those driving forces behind those motivators. So what are some examples of our motivators? So our extrinsic motivation. Some of those examples are participating in a sport, to win an award. You want that first place trophy. So that's what your goal is. That's what you're trying to achieve, is that trophy. Or cleaning your room because you live at home and you really don't want to listen to your parents complain or get grounded. Or you may not want to listen to your spouse complain because you just haven't contributed to that. So that's going to be an extrinsic motivation. Competing in a contest to win a scholarship or writing that essay. These are all external motivators to um, your end uh, outcome of what you're trying to achieve. Then you look at your intrinsic motivation. So, before you were participating in a sport because you wanted the trophy. But in this instant, you like to play volleyball. You like to play soccer. There's no trophy. There's no medal for first place. There's nothing but pride. So you just find the activity enjoyable. cleaning your room because you like to feel tidy. It's more organized. It helps your mental health. It helps you function better. Studying a subject you find fascinating. An example here would be, you want to take um, history because you find history fascinating, not because you need it to get an associate's degree. Needing to take a class or having to take a class because you're getting a degree is an extrinsic motivator. It's that external motivation. But then taking the class because you just want to learn more about it, that could be that example of intrinsic or internal motivation. All right, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to look at mindset. Okay, so your mindset is the way that you see yourself, how you experience the world. And this matters when it comes to college achievements. So there are two mindsets that can exist for an individual. You have a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. And we're going to also look at a front stage and a back stage and what those things are. So your growth mindset. So people with growth mindsets believe that their traits like intelligence and personality are able to change. They're able to develop over time. They see challenges as an opportunity for growth. Okay, but then you have people with fixed mindsets that believe that the qualities that people are born with are set in stone. Okay, they're unchangeable because this is just how things are. This is how things, I'm not very good at math. I was born this way and I can't change. So because they have that fixed mindset, it's harder to overcome the challenges with a fixed mindset. But there are ways that you can develop a growth mindset. But before we get to those ways, we're going to talk about front stage versus back stage. So this example of our front stage is something that you see um, it's kind of what it is when you present yourself to society. Okay, so it's perspective that do your social interactions every day. All right, so how people view you. So your front stage is basically you're a performer and you're controlling how the audience perceives you. So as we go through life, or even every day, we put on a different mask for different people, different settings throughout our lives. So, we may have this work setting that we act a certain way. We may have a way that we act at church. We have a way that we act to our children's teachers. So this um, perception, so you're expected to present yourself in a certain way. So when a person goes against that normal, that expectation, society tends to take notice. So what happens is individuals are expected to put on a costume. You're expected to act differently when you're in front of the quote audience. So this is the idea of the front stage, that the part of your individual performance where you regularly function is in a fixed fashion. Okay, it is this standard performance that you do. So, the actor, performs and adheres to the conventions that have meaning to your audience, which means that, at work you have to act a certain way. So because of that, you do. And so that's, your front stage. But in the opposite of that, you have your backstage. The actor, the performer, you can relax. You can drop any kind of front that you may have had that you were working on with work or with, your volunteer organizations. You can be yourself. You can step out of the character that you've been playing. So when everything's said and done, you return to that backstage. So you feel like a relief. Like when you're done for the day, have you ever sat down on the couch and you're like, and you let out this big sigh because now you feel this weight lifted and you're able to just be yourself. Even if that means just being yourself, sitting on the couch watching TV and not doing anything. But it's where you're present, but your audience is not. So you can step out of character without fear of disturbing your performance. You can be yourself. All right, so those are our growth mindsets and our fixed mindsets. And then you have, of course, what we talked about just now is your front stage versus your backstage. So let's talk about developing a growth mindset. Okay, so it's crucial for success. So consider what internally motivates you to achieve high academically. And when you feel challenged, you remind yourself of these things, Acknowledge that when you're challenged and you're frustrated, that you can, take a break, take a step back, figure out what's going on, and, enlist the help of friends and family. If you need to talk to a counselor, all of these things that we have, they are there for you as an opportunity to use them, because motivation requires resilience. It requires grit to get the ultimate goal of achievement. So, that ability to bounce back after experiencing setbacks, that's grit, that's determination, it's sustainability to work towards that long-term or short-term goals that you have set for yourself. So, becoming resilient and a gritty person involves shifting your perspective out of a fixed mindset. You're viewing failure as an opportunity for learning instead of a barrier for learning. So, you doing so, your perspective shifts. Okay, so you're able to have the ability to control your emotions, make changes when necessary. All right, so resilience and grit and developing that growth mindset are all things that will help you achieve your goals. Now, what are 5 questions that can, help you understand your goals? All right, so these are just some examples. All right, so understanding your academic motivators. So, what motivated you to apply to college in the first place? Or if this isn't, your first time in college, what motivated you to start college? Or, if you are in a new place, in a new country, uh, and you went to college in your home country, what motivated you to now come to the United States and change and apply to college here in the States? What motivates you to pay attention in class? Paying attention is super hard, especially in this online global pandemic forced environment. It's one thing for students to take online classes because that's what works best for you. That's what fits best for you. In this current setting, we don't get a choice. This is what's offered, and if you're wanting to pursue those goals for college success, then you have 2 options. You either wait and take classes when we go back to face-to-face environment, or you start now and you don't wait. So what motivates you to really push through and to do the work that's necessary? And what's keeping you working when you are challenged or struggled or struggling in class? And then what motivates you to work to the best of your ability in a class? All of these things are questions to kind of ask yourself and answer them, you know, and understand what your motivators are. So to do that, to help, with that, SMART goals are something that were created because it really helps you focus on what you want to accomplish and what it'll take to get there. And it's a way to know if you're staying on track to get there. So what's a SMART goal? What is that? Well, a SMART goal is a specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely goal. It's a system. So specific, it means it's straightforward. It's detailed in a way that makes it very clear what you plan to do, why you want to do it, and how it will happen. All right. And then your measurable. You can define your measurable criteria and that it's indicated by your progress. It's going to help you determine when you have achieved your goal because you have set out a measurable goal that you can actually look at and see if you've met that. And I'll give you an example of how to break down this SMART goal in just a second. So achievable. So that's realistic. It's something that you want to commit to. All right. But let's be honest. If you want to be a famous NFL player and you're 30 years old, well, that's not saying it can't happen, but it is harder for that goal to be achievable, especially, if you're not meeting all that criteria that you could have when you were 18, fresh out of high school. So it really needs to be achievable. And the same thing is, if you say, I want to be a millionaire, that's great. That's a good goal, but it needs to be achievable. So what you do is you start small, and we'll get to that in just a second. So next thing is relevant. Is it going to make sense based on what your short and long-term plans are? So is it relevant to what you want to achieve? And then timely. You have to give yourself a time frame to complete this. You need things like a short-term goal that is something that you can achieve within 6 months or less. And then you need long-term goals. And these goals, they can be achieved in, a year, 2 years, 5 years. It's looking at your future as a big picture. Okay, so you can break those down. So you focus on the short-term goals and the smaller details, and then you add those long-term goals in that big picture. So think about what your purpose is for attending college and consider your values, what's important to you as a person, what's your strengths, your weaknesses, and use this information to set up your preliminary goals. Turn your first draft of SMART goals into applying the characteristics of SMART goals. So what that means is you write down what your goals normally would be, and then you look at the SMART format and you change that to that. You give yourself a timetable. You make sure it's measurable. How would you measure this? How could you complete these steps and make it measurable for you? And then finally, you take action. You achieve your goals. Now that you have an outline that's set up, now you review what your motivators are, whether they're extrinsic or intrinsic, and use that to help you and drive you to accomplish your goals. All right, so when you're creating your SMART goals, all right, you are breaking down your goals into two categories, your short term and your long term. So it's creating that first draft of goals. What immediately comes to mind, a lot of students have said they want to be in our nursing program. It's a great program, or a nursing period. It doesn't necessarily have to be a TCC nursing program. So let's use that nursing program and let's take that and let's break this down into a SMART goal. So what do you want to do? So your specific goal is you want to become a nurse. All right, an RN. We're just going to stick with that because that's, a small amount right now. Well, how are you going to achieve that? So if I'm going to make that measurable, how am I going to achieve it? How do I know when I've achieved that goal? Well, one of those things is you would be certified with the State of Texas Nursing Board. That's one of your goals. All right, that's how you know that's measurable. So this is a long-term goal. Is it achievable? Well, you know that if you it's realistic. It's something you want to commit to because you've already taken the steps to commit to it. So absolutely, it's achievable. Is it within your power to accomplish? Well, yes, it's in your power to accomplish. What you have to do to get there. You have to, study. You have to take anatomy and physiology. You have to take these classes, and you have to dedicate time so that way that you can achieve the highest grades that you possibly can that will help get you approved to be into the program. So can you realistically achieve it? Absolutely. If you really commit yourself to the standards of nursing and the homework and the assignments, it's 100% achievable. And then a timetable. That's your T of that final SMART goal. Well, your timetable would be, within the next 3 years, I want to have completed the prerequisites. I want to being able to apply for a nursing program, and I want to be admitted to the program. Those are goals that you can set. You can break down your long-term goal into smaller goals so you can achieve it. It'll give you, your way to achieve things so you don't feel kind of overwhelmed. So that is an example of your long term. That nursing would be a long term. And then we break that up, So you have to, in order to be in the nursing program, you have to do an anatomy and physiology class. Well, that can be a short term goal. Enroll in anatomy and physiology. Get an A in Anatomy and Physiology 1. Get an A in Anatomy and Physiology 2. These are short-term goals versus our enroll in a nursing program. So what you see on the screen is just other examples of short-term and long-term goals. But you have to identify what's your motivators for your goals and your ultimate success. So, is it money? Is that what you're looking for? Are you looking for a better job? Are you looking for more comfortability? Is it just the grades? Are you wanting it for, the pride of doing that? Is that your ultimate goal? Is it graduation only? Is it your family? Is it your children? So you need to identify what your own motivators are, because you should be at the center of your motivation, because without you, none of your success is going to happen. So these are things that you really need to keep in mind when you identify your motivators, when you look at goal setting for yourself, is you, because you are the one that brought you to this point of enrolling in college. And lastly, we have what are ways to become more resilient and gritty in college. Okay, you can get it's challenging, when you write down when you're challenged, writing down things that will motivate you. All right, so drawing on that intrinsic and extrinsic motivational factors to help stick it through, to not give up. That's something that you can do. When you're trying to overcome an obstacle, outline 2 or 3 specific steps that you can take to help you succeed, because you're more likely to persist and push forward when you have an outline and a clear path forward. So when you write it down, it'll help you be able to reflect on what you need to do. And when you fail, allow yourself to feel upset. Okay, that's being upset, getting emotional about something is completely normal. And there's nothing wrong with that. That is beneficial to our mental health. But give yourself a timetable to be upset. Say, okay, you know what? This sucks. I'm going to give myself 30 minutes to get really pissed off. And then I'm going to figure out how I could have changed this situation, what I can learn from this situation, because it's natural to be upset when you experience failure. So don't ever deny those feelings. But you need to commit to learning why you might have failed and what you can do differently in the future. All right, so when you get frustrated, pause, reflect on what you're trying to do. That is important. What are you trying to achieve? Because reflecting on the bigger picture, it can help you stay motivated, and it can keep your frustration from derailing your path to achievement. And then lastly, when you want to give up, take a break, take a walk, do something that rejuvenates you. Figure out, do I need additional help? Do I just need to take a break? And then decide, give yourself a timetable and decide when you're going to try again, because you're going to want to give up. Sometimes you're just going to say, I can't do it. I'm just exhausted. There's no way that I'll be able to push through. That's okay. But don't give up. Figure out what can help get you back to where you need to be. All right. So for this week, that's what we're looking at. We're looking at different ways that we can be